Welcome to the Everyone's a Critic movie review podcast. I'm your co-host, Bob Zarrell. With me, as always, is professional film critic Sean Patrick. Visit us at ihatecritics.net, everyone's a critic podcast.com. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Our handle's criticspod. Patreon.com/criticspods. Best way to help support the podcast. TeePublic page at ihatecritics.net. You can buy some podcast merch. And then you can listen to us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Alexa, all your podcatchers. Subscribe to the show, rate and review the show. You will win a Blu-ray, or not win. You will be given a Blu-ray,
a mystery Blu-ray. From Well Go USA.
Yeah. So, and all the information is pinned to the top of our social media pages. If you get a review, let us know, and I will look it up. I think we have one that's pending that I keep forgetting to look up because I've been gone. Hopefully by next week I have that. And then I apologize for missing last week, but it sounds like everything went well. How was the Napoleon Dynamite thing? I know you already talked about it, but you didn't talk about it with me.
It was a lot of fun. Yeah, those guys are they're funny. They jump around, they take over the show, and the moderator is supposed to just sort of sit there. I was kind of the timekeeper, and then I tried to keep the time. They're like, "No, it's fine. We can keep going." Like, oh, okay.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah,
they wanted to get to all the questions, and they did, and yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, that sounded like a ton of fun. It's really cool you got to do it. Congratulations. That's pretty awesome to moderate something like that. It's pretty...
Yeah, I've never done anything like that before. It was really cool. It's a lot easier. It's a lot easier than hosting this show, honestly.
Well, the funny part was because you gave it to me, and there was like... I may be exaggerating, but it was... at least 10 minutes, maybe 20 of you and Josh before Zach even got on. And I was like, I really kind of want to leave this in there because this is pretty good. But then you do start the show properly. And I thought about putting it at the end, and I was like, I don't have permission, so I'm just gonna.
What were we even talking about?
We were just getting caught up talking about I mean, it's been a while since you probably done much with him, so it was. I don't know. It was just good, friendly conversation. Nothing scandalous or anything like that, but it was fun to listen to.
Yeah. And Josh is good. Josh is really good.
Oh, yeah. Let's just jump right into it, and we will start with the big new release this week, Venom.
Venom, Let There Be Carnage is the full title. The sequel starring Tom Hardy, Woody Harrelson, Michelle Williams, and Naomi Harris. And basically, the story goes that Woody Harrelson is Cletus something or other. He's a serial killer. He wants to confess his crimes. He'll only confess them to Eddie Brock, Tom Hardy's character, only if he'll publish this one thing in his column, this sort of cryptic message intended for Naomi Harris's character. Naomi Harris's character is his former love from when they were both locked up in the same place, the same sanitarium. And he wants to get a private message to her. So Eddie does it, and then he goes back. But before he does, Venom actually captures a couple of images of what Woody Harrelson's character is hiding, and actually he publishes those without ever talking to Kennedy or Cletus again. So there it is. He actually gets his scoop without needing to give up anything, really. This enrages him. They meet again. He bites him, and he gets a bit of venom in him, does Cletus, and he uses that to become Carnage, the character Carnage, who just like Venom but red, and has like darts that he can shoot, and he can make giant tornadoes, I guess, for reasons. This movie, I didn't hate this, but I didn't like it either. I don't know exactly what anybody is going for in this movie. Woody Harrelson seems to be just completely off in left field doing his own Woody Harrelson thing. He's got this ridiculous looking haircut and stupid outfits and this stupid way of talking, and I just don't understand any of it. He's making a lot of choices, a lot of big choices. None of them are very good, but there are a lot of big choices going on. Michelle Williams is she's just so above all this that she's fine. Naomi Harris's character is just kind of strange, and she's not really given anything very interesting. She's a mutant who can scream very loudly. Her character is called Shriek. And that puts her at odds with both Carnage and Venom because they're susceptible to very loud noises, and thus Carnage and Cletus kind of have a sort of at odds situation as well because Carnage kind of wants to kill Shriek, and so that creates an opening for Venom to be able to fight him. There's parts of this that are kind of funny, like the Venom character is kind of funny in that he kind of treats Eddie like his boyfriend. Kind of. They don't say it outright, but they bicker like a married couple. And they seem to have lovers spats at times, which is kind of cute, kind of funny, kind of weird for trying to take the Venom character seriously as a big time threat to anyone. There's a centerpiece scene in the movie where Eddie and Venom are actually apart, where Venom has left Eddie and taken up in another body, and he goes to a Halloween party and everybody mistakes him for a costume, and he gets on a microphone and says he's coming out of the Eddie closet, which everyone takes to mean that he's coming out as gay, and everybody cheers for him. So the Venom goes into this whole speech that everybody's kind of misinterpreting as his big coming out speech, which is a cute scene, but I mean, again, it's a rather played out joke. I think that's something like that has kind of been like these types of misunderstandings are almost sitcom level. This kind of misunderstanding where the fish out of water doesn't understand that what he's saying is funny, and it's the kind of just kind of the low bar that this movie lingers on for a very long time. On top of which, the action isn't particularly impressive. There's nothing like outwardly terrible. Just a lot of things that just a lot of pieces that don't really fit together. And then, of course, they're going to bring this into the MCU, and Venom is going into the next Spider-Man movie, apparently. This version of Venom, which is very odd. Yeah, it's a whole thing.
I don't know much about Naomi Harris. What's she from?
She's been in a lot of things. Off the top of my head, I can't name one. But she's a very good actress. She's just not given anything interesting to do here.
Well, that was what I was going to get at. Is I purposely picked this poster, which if you're listening at home, you can't see, but on YouTube, it's a picture of Tom Hardy, like 4 separate posters: Tom Hardy, Woody Harrelson, Michelle Williams, and Naomi Harris, separately as like their own poster. And I read, I think it was Cinema Jaw said Tom Hardy and Woody Harrelson could have been winning Oscars this year, but instead they made Venom. It really could be said for all 4 of these because they're all 4 fantastic actors. And I'm sure it's better than it deserves to be, and definitely this cast is better than this movie deserves. Maybe
everybody got a really nice paycheck.
Oh yeah, I heard it did very, very well this weekend.
93 million, I think.
Wow. And this probably wasn't streaming anywhere, so
no. You had to go to the theater to see this one.
But I mean, it's cooler bringing it into the MCU. That's the only thing. Like, I haven't seen either one of these movies, but I remember as a kid, Venom was one of the few because I think he was created when I was a kid, so that was kind of cool.
He was if you watched the Spider-Man cartoon, which would have been around the time you were a kid, Venom was on that, and Venom was in Spider-Man 3 as well.
Right. Well, I remember getting the comics when it first came out, and so that at least that's another major character I haven't seen in the MCU yet. So, but again, I haven't seen these movies, so I don't know how much I care. But we'll see. I mean, I don't understand how he works without Spider-Man, but they've managed to make 2 movies. And I always thought he was a bad guy, so that makes it even more confusing for me.
He's an anti-hero. So, like Eddie Brock plays the good side of him, who keeps him. If he's going to murder a bad guy, if he's going to eat somebody's head, it's going to be a bad guy, not just random people. Although he does kill 3 random people because they can't actually have the venom in them, and thus they end up dying when he takes over their bodies. So that's not addressed, but hey, that's fine. Venom's really funny while this is happening, so it's okay.
Is he going to be a bad guy with Spider-Man, or?
Hard to say. They've never established the Eddie Brock Spider-Man relationship in the the Tom Hardy version versus the Holland version. So yeah, they've never really. There's no Eddie Brock dynamic in the current Spider-Man Spider-Man universe, and Eddie Brock was an antagonist Spider-Man, so hard to say how they go together.
Okay, that's all I have to keep this conversation going. I tried. But let's move on to the Many Saints of Newark.
Yes, the Many Saints of Newark is directed by Alan Taylor. Of course, comes from the creator of the TV series The Sopranos, David Chase, and this is a prequel to the HBO series centered on the father of Christopher Moltisanti, one of the characters on the show. His father is played by Alessandro Nivola, Dickie Moltisanti, and he's the centerpiece of this story. As a criminal who's kind of an underling to the head of the Soprano crime family, played by John Bernthal, who is not a character on the TV series. He's gone before the series happens. They really, I didn't watch much of the series. I watched like the first 2 seasons and then sort of dropped out, but I'm sure they're very good. This, however, is not because of the connection to the TV series, not because it's filled with Easter eggs for people who love the TV series. It's just that this thing is so stop and start. It is so just random scenes, like especially early on, scenes will happen very quickly and then be gone and have absolutely no effect on the ongoing narrative. And one of the things that happens and is kind of gone is the character of Tony Soprano, which is kind of the bill of goods we were all sold. This is how Tony Soprano becomes Tony Soprano. And no, not really.
Nope,
I mean,
just a kid the whole time.
Every scene of him is like people telling him to stay out of crime. Don't go around your Uncle Dickie. Stay out of crime. Go to high school. Go to college. He wants to play football. I'm like, Tony Soprano. Is he gonna be? We're gonna find out how he's gonna be Tony Soprano, and not really. There are good elements of this, and Alessandro Nivola is a great actor. I just think the way they structured this story is so bizarre because you've got this central conflict between Dickie Moltisanti and a character named Harold, played by Lamar Odom. God, Leslie Odom Jr., who's one of his employees who then tries to become his own man and start his own numbers game, and they become rivals. And then their conflict is not really resolved in any kind of satisfying way, because the big confrontation that they have happens way before the end of the movie, and doesn't solve anything between the two of them. And then Dickie's ultimate fate, was that even Harold who handled? I couldn't even tell based off of the way that was so. The cinematography is so dark. I don't honestly know if Harold played a role in what happens to Dickie or not. I'm assuming that was him, but I can't.
I assumed it was
sure.
Tony Soprano, but you couldn't tell. And then,
no,
and I figured they had to do something big, but it didn't make a whole lot of sense if it was him. But then they kind of focused on him at the very, very end. This would work better as a TV series, just a 1 season. Take your time. There was too much going on that I couldn't follow it.
Yeah.
Like there was, I mean, I could kind of guess, and I probably guessed right, but and I know it's a mob movie, so there's a lot of cheating on your wife and moving on to different girls, but it was just like, especially the character of Dickie was with like. Was he married? Who was that person he was with at the beginning? And then I don't know. Then he was back with her, and then there was really no explanation. Not that you needed it,
right?
But it was just kind of annoying, especially when you have a wife not paying attention sitting next to you. You have to try to explain it.
The whole thing, Dickie's wife is unable to have a child, so you assume then the relationship he starts with his father's wife. Weird to say, but yeah, that's what he's doing. His stepmom, essentially. You think that's going to pay off with her being Christopher's mother, but then that's never resolved either. It appears that the woman who they said couldn't have a baby apparently did have a baby, and she's the mom. So I was confused about why they even bothered with mentioning that detail about her not being able to have a child. It played no role in the movie whatsoever, and it just seemed to toss that detail in there for no good reason. It was really, there's a lot of frustrating things about this movie, but here's how they're trying to get around this. And this is a theory that I believe Matt Zoller Seitz is kind of pushing on Twitter, and others have kind of mentioned it. The narration is by Christopher Moltisanti, who, and many are saying that this is an unreliable narrative because he was not there for any of this. He was a baby. You see him born in this movie, like you see him as a little baby in the movie. He wasn't there to witness any of the stories that's being told, but he's the narrator. So the defense is why this is so clunky, why this is so nonsensical, why these details seem to be thrown in at random. It's somebody who wasn't there relating a story to you that they weren't there for. Like it's just them recalling memories that they've made up in their own mind.
That's an odd choice for a movie.
But it fits. It fits with David Chase because did you know the ending of The Sopranos was just a joke on the cast and the crew?
Yeah, which is fine, but to make a feature-length movie that was based now, is that character in the TV series The Sopranos?
Yeah, Christopher is. Yes.
And does Tony kill him?
Yes.
Okay, good. Because they, at least at one point, they say Tony kills me, so I wasn't sure as long as that's consistent. I mean, that doesn't... Why you would have him as your narrator doesn't really...
Well, there's another aspect of that goes back to the TV series. But again, you have to do so much homework to try and enjoy what little of this you can enjoy that it's really just... It's something that's only for fans of The Sopranos. And even then, I'm not sure how satisfying this is going to be to actual fans of this show. Other than I think I from what I saw of the first two seasons, Corey Stoll is incredible at capturing Uncle Junior. The mannerisms, the way he speaks, the thin skin, he captures that brilliantly. So you obviously wouldn't know that, but not having seen the show, so it probably didn't matter to you in any way. But as somebody who had an idea of who Uncle Junior was, that was kind of impressive, and that was really kind of entertaining. He was kind of my favorite part of the movie, honestly, even though he's not necessarily a main character. His thing at the end where he's involved in what happens to the main character is really clever. And it's a really good use of that character. But there's not enough. Again, you have to have done the homework to know why that's good. And so, again, the movie fails.
Yeah, I mean, I've tried. We were going to start watching The Sopranos earlier this year. We watched one episode, and we both liked it. And quite frankly, from Monday to Thursday, there's like no movies I can watch for the podcast because they all come out on Friday. So it'd be a good... If we were going to watch something during the week, then we just never went back to it. We probably will at some point. It was funny. My wife's like, this is a pretty good show. I'm like, well, it's like considered the best, one of the best shows of all time, but okay. I mean, as a mob movie, it's just too convoluted for me, and it's too jam-packed. There's too much in it, and it's too short of a running time. Not that I wanted any longer, because I was confused too much. It needed to take its time. It would be better as a series, I think, and they could use some of this cleverness, spread it out a little bit, make it make sense a little bit better.
Yeah, the whole Rayliota thing, I mean, on a TV show, that might have paid off in some way. But in this movie, that reveal, I guess they might call it, it's just utter nonsense and doesn't do anything other than create some really great scenes between him and Alessandro Nivola that have absolutely nothing to do with it. Just stops the narrative momentum because he has no role in any other aspect of the movie. So those scenes that are pretty good where he's trying to give him advice and it's not when Dickie wants to hear, it's the dynamic is great, but that character makes no sense. Again, they just stop the movie for that. And it just the momentum keeps stopping regularly.
But the scene that causes them to get to those scenes would have been a great episode ending scene.
Absolutely.
But I don't know. I'm glad I watched it, I guess, but I feel like this will be forgotten, even amongst Soprano fans. But what do I know?
Many Saints is the English translation of the name Moltisanti, by the way.
Cool. All right, let's move on to Netflix, and we'll talk about The Guilty.
The Guilty stars Jake Gyllenhaal as in the role of an LAPD detective named Joe Baylor, who gets into trouble and busted down to a 911 operator. His night is rather mundane. He's going through a series of relatively kind of serious situations and other ones that are not so serious. And then he gets a very strange phone call from a woman who is vocally played by Riley Keough. And she is in a situation. She's talking to him as if she's talking to her daughter, so as not to give away what she's actually doing, which is she's in a van with a man who has kidnapped her, and she's trying to tell 911 that she's been kidnapped without saying that. And luckily he does eventually pick up on that before hanging up on her. And once he does, this starts the plot of him trying to figure out a way to help her and get her out of this situation and try and figure out who this is that kidnapped her and what to do about her children who are apparently at home alone, which we're going to hear from as well. And a whole overarching narrative that unfolds over about an 80 to 90 minute period. This movie is awesome. I loved this. I loved every second of it. I was hooked. The second Riley Keough started, I'm a huge true crime fan. And I'm also a huge fan of listening to real life 911 calls because some of them are just this entertaining. In fact, the original Danish version of this movie came about because the original director was listening to 911 calls on YouTube, and he heard a call that was similar to this one, which I've heard a call very similar to this one as well, about a woman in Alaska who was in the middle of a kidnapping, and she managed to turn on her phone and call 911 without her kidnapper knowing it, and she's trying to get him to tell her where they're going so the 911 operator can hear that. And that one is really exciting to listen to. It turns out terribly, unfortunately, so I shouldn't be enjoying it so much, but it was exciting as a story nevertheless. And this is exciting from beginning to end. Jake Gyllenhaal's incredible. The little details, the frantic eyes, even his asthma feels like a plot point. Just the way he incorporates it is so brilliant. The way he holds his inhaler is something that I do when I'm stressed. Like I get it. I felt it. I felt every moment of this. He's so amazing. And then you got Antoine Fuqua, who's a hit and miss director, but here he's just hitting on all cylinders. The way he makes this feel so dynamic, and yet we're only in this one spot with this one character throughout the entire movie. We don't see Riley Keough. We don't see Peter Sarsgaard. We don't see any of these other amazing guest stars. Ethan Hawke plays somebody that he talks to on the phone. It's an amazing roster of stars, but you only see Gyllenhaal, and you never leave that 911 office, and he still makes it feel like an action movie. And that is incredible. I'm told that the Danish original is even better than this. I've not seen that, but this to me was just so awesome. And it's because Jake Gyllenhaal is so awesome.
I'll agree with you on part of it. Is Gyllenhaal makes this way better than it is. I think this movie's kind of a mess, but Gyllenhaal's so good that you kind of can. It's easy to get caught up into the action that he brings to it. I can imagine the Danish one being better. I just feel like they're trying to cram too much into this call and trying to do too many twists and whatever, that a lesser actor would make it annoying. But Gyllenhaal does a great job of keeping you invested in the movie and not falling out. I mean, to me, this is solely him. In a lot of ways, one of the most impressive performances I've ever seen, because I don't like this movie, but he kept pulling me back in because of how good he is, if that makes any sense at all.
Yeah.
I agree with the excitement of a 911 call, but it just kept taking twists and turns that were to the point where it was kind of almost near eye-rolling, but Gyllenhaal still finds a way to make it work. And I don't know. A lot of it is, me not, what is the word that I'm looking for? Cynicism, being, always like, well, they wouldn't do that, or, and so there's definitely this is a perfect world scenario, of what the right thing a cop should do or whatever.
Yeah.
But at the same time, he does such a great job of holding this movie together and make it a great action movie inside of just a 911 booth, operator booth.
I think for me, Riley Keough also kind of hooked me in with that vocal performance. The way she shifts in this character is not easy. It's not an easy thing to pull off. And I thought the way she did it was amazing. And that's just her acting and her voice making that happen. And I thought she was amazing. That I know there's a lot of people who found that particular plot point to be annoying or predictable. I didn't. I was hook, line, and sinker in there. But I also had that Alaska phone call in my head too, and I got that true crime thing in my head that's kind of distracting me from what should have been probably obvious, I guess. But it still hooked me, and I kind of gasped as that went on. So I appreciated the sleight of hand in play.
Well, yeah, and I kept getting nearly pulled out of the movie. And that was one of the things that nearly pulled me out, is because it was kind of like, okay, and again, I never got fully as into it as you did, so I'm always on the precipice of falling out of it. And so I think I think that's part of why I saw it coming, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And I don't know, it's good. I recommend watching it for the performances alone. But there's just stuff that goes on, and I don't really know what you could have done to make it perfect. Maybe make it a simpler call. But even with the twists and turns, and this, even where I don't really get it, I'm not as buying into it. Every time I start to not buy into it, Gyllenhaal pulls me back in and allows me to go along for the ride. And I that alone I find pretty remarkable. I'm trying to say good things about this, because that really is where I got a bug flying around me. It was just really impressive, because I would say in general, on paper, I don't like this movie. But he did such a great job of, every time I started to drift, pulling me back in. So
yeah,
I can imagine, I recommend it.
I imagine another scenario where I did so much and just wore me out. It became exhausting at a certain point, but I must have been in just the right mood for this, because it hit me in all the right places. I got emotional when he's talking to the little kid and she's telling him all the details about their house, and then when the cop showed up there, I was in that moment. I know that's kind of a manipulative thing, having a little girl in that situation,
but it's
child
real.
endanger plot.
That's something that exists.
It worked for me. It worked for me.
Yeah, I will. The scene with the girl, I agree completely. That was one of the things that really started to get me deeper into this movie, and more harder to fall out. And I don't think it was, or whatever the word. I don't think it was. I think it mattered, and I think it worked. I don't think that was weak, like it is in some other movies. And because of that, it allowed me to stay in it longer when he was doing things at the end. There's a couple of things at the very end that I'm just like, part of it too is it allows you to kind of understand why some cops do the wrong thing and they don't mean to. Their intentions are good. A lot of that is in this too, which I don't necessarily love, but at the same time I get behind it, because he's definitely a guy who is more of a shoot from the hip kind of react, not really thinking things through, which is good and bad, and you find out why. But
he's kind of an asshole. He really is kind of an asshole, and I enjoyed how he transforms through this in a way. He doesn't come all the way, but he does kind of, he gets to a point where he becomes a better person. And there's a big arc for him in that Gyllenhaal is just eating up all the way through. He's just that good. The ending of the Danish original, I actually read about that. Maybe I shouldn't have, but I did, because I felt like they're almost the same movie in many ways. But the actual ending of the Danish original is much more impactful, I thought, just from reading about it. And I don't know if I want to spoil that or not, but
no, I can totally imagine that though.
It's slightly different from this in the way what happened to him is revealed, and I thought it had a bigger punch just reading about it.
Yeah, and I mean, I'll go as far as to say, in the hands of a good actor, this movie might not work. So that's how great he is in it.
He's one of the best there is. I mean, him and Cage just continue to hit home run after home run lately, although we'll see what happens next week.
Yeah. He hasn't let us down since we started doing this.
It's true.
But it's on Netflix, and it's probably at the top of all the charts, so I recommend watching it, if nothing else. I mean,
I finished a written review today. I called it the best Netflix original of the year. Low bar, I know.
I can't even remember what came out anymore. Wasn't there a movie we liked that no one else liked with John David Washington and
Beckett? Yeah, that was
not that one. Another one, a marriage one.
Oh, Malcolm and Marie. Yeah, that's a really good movie.
I really like that a lot. I'd put that over this, but this performance is fantastic, and everybody should go and watch it. Coming Home in the Dark.
Coming Home in the Dark is a film from New Zealand, a horror film about a family that goes on a hike in a beautiful New Zealand park among the mountains. They're going on a hiking trip to this beautiful lake. They're going to have a lovely afternoon with mom, dad, and two teenagers, just kind of spending time together. The story is very normal until they get to the park, and then they're hiking to their location, and one of the teenagers sees two men standing on top of the mountain, and these two men wave to him, and they have a vague sense of menace, and it's a wonderful introduction to these characters because you just can sense what's coming. And then when it comes, it's still shocking and impactful. What's going to unfold from here is something of a mystery that's part revenge, but also part kind of at this time. It's strange. But also just very exciting, incredibly well done. The direction here is so smart and so frightening that he manages to just continue to wring new levels of excitement from this story. Just that most of it is a lot of just driving around and having very deep conversations and pushing the limits. Daniel Gillies especially is here to push the limits of Eric Thompson's character to get him to a place where he needs him to get to. And all this is building towards something, again, is shocking, violent, and incredible. I was really just hit by this movie. It really struck me. I thought this movie was bold and dangerous and scary and incredibly well directed.
Yeah, I agree with you for the most part. I think the main difference between you and I when it comes to these type of horror movies is I don't need the connection. To me, when it's just a bad guy doing bad things for no reason at all is just horrifying. And there's enough in real life that we don't need it in movies, I suppose, is a valid argument. Yeah. It works here, but at the same time, it keeps me from putting it up there with other movies that are more even The Strangers, which is just random people killing or torturing and haunting these two people. I prefer that over the connection stuff, just because I start asking questions, and then there's nothing can come good of when you're asking questions when you're watching a movie. That said, up and everything you said, especially at the beginning, is the two guys are introduced is phenomenal. Where they go with it is phenomenal. It is. I think it's very good for a movie like that has to have the connection between the killer and the main victim. It's as good as it can get in that scenario, as far as I'm concerned. It's definitely, if you're into, I don't want to call it low budget, but I don't know, moderate budget horror movie, this is definitely a good, realistic, terrifying, suspenseful movie, and I definitely recommend it.
I found it to be this this amazing tightrope act that they're doing, because how do you come down, or where do you go from where this movie begins, especially in terms of the violence? Where this begins with the violence is at such a crescendo. It's such a height that coming down from that, it's like, where is this going now? And I felt like we needed that connection plot, if you will, just to kind of give this play, because otherwise that is such an outsized moment. What happens there, that where do you go from there?
Oh, for sure. I mean, and yeah, you definitely couldn't tell that story without the connection from that point on and have it be as good. I agree with that completely. And I do like the way they use the connection, and then kind of at a certain point there are no likable characters. And I've always been a fan of that. Which, yeah. I knew you liked this movie before I saw it, so I was kind of like, this doesn't have any. I mean, there's one likable character, I guess. What's her name? Miriam McDowell.
Yeah.
But she's passed out most of the movie. But I thought it was effective.
Daniel Gillies is just magnetic. Like the way he talks and his presence is that jacket that he's wearing is all, it looks lived in. It looks like that is a part, and like he couldn't take that off if he wanted to, which is kind of this is a lovely little character detail. Is the dirty griminess of those two guys. It made me wonder if like these guys have been hanging out in this guy's garage for like the past 2 days getting ready for this. Like they've just been hiding in a ditch outside of this guy's house or something. Like I just kept coming up with scenarios in my head how they ended up like this, and it made the movie that much more exciting for me.
And when I say I don't think you could make a connection movie really better than this, and I don't think you could make this movie without the connection. I'm not trying to say, that I wish it would have gone a different direction. As the movie itself, I think it's really good. My preference is the movies where it comes out of nowhere and you don't know anything. It's more, there's nothing behind it. But when you're going to put something behind it, this is how you do it. And the stuff that happens is, it makes you ask some really good questions. Especially the wife and her having to, deal with what she's learning. All that's very powerful and very well done. I mean, it's a hell of a movie, and I definitely think horror fans should give this one a shot, especially if you're into the more realistic horror and less cheesy horror. This is definitely for you. All right. American Night.
American Night stars Jeremy Piven and Jonathan Rhys Meyers in one of the worst movies of the year. Boy, do I hate this movie. This is a movie about an ensemble cast that it's told as if the movie were put into a blender and assembled at random. They want to be Tarantino. They also want to be highbrow, taken seriously, and it's just awful. It's just awful from beginning to end. I don't even know how to describe this plot because I don't really know exactly what the plot is. Emil Hirsch is a mobster who wants to get a painting back that was taken from him that he was promised by his late father. The painting is the legendary pink Marilyn Monroe created by Andy Warhol in the 60s. He owned it at one time. He wants to get it back. Somehow it's gone to Japan and is now coming back, and he knows it's coming back, and he tries to kill the guy who's bringing it back so he can get it back. Who that guy was taking it to, I don't know, but it somehow ends up in Jeremy Piven's gym bag. Jeremy Piven is the brother of an artist played by Jonathan Rhys Meyers who has his own gallery, who's dating a woman who also has her own gallery, I guess. Weirdly, I don't know why. That's just an odd perspective to have two people who both own and operate art galleries dating is weird to me for some reason. I don't understand any aspect of this and why anybody thought this was funny. This is just completely random. At one point, a guy just runs into the cafe that these two guys are in and just starts shooting people. And then these guys just get up and walk out covered in blood. This is the scene. They're just walking out of a place where a bunch of people just got shot. They're just kind of like, well, that happened. Yeah, well, I guess we should get out of here. Yeah, let's get out of here. Let's go. All right.
Now, is this a movie neither one of us like, but a lot of people like, called Boondock Saints, which is very, wannabe Tarantino, wannabe Coen Brothers, wannabe a lot of things.
Yeah.
To the point where it works for more people than it doesn't. Will this work for an audience like that, or no?
No, these characters aren't cool. There's nothing cool. I know people think that the characters in Boondock Saints characters aren't cool. He's an artist. Jeremy Piven's character is just so fucking random. Like he's trying to be a karate guy, I guess. He's a Hollywood stuntman who's like learning karate. Like we see multiple scenes of him trying to throw throwing stars with blindfolded for some reason. He has this theory that he goes on about because again, this writer thinks he's Quentin Tarantino, and he's certainly not. But he goes on about how you can kill a guy with a golf club with one blow. You don't need multiple blows. One blow will kill a guy. Trust me, I know. And I guess that does pay off later, but I don't know why it's there. It doesn't do anything. It's not cool. It just sets up something that happens that you don't really get to see. You see the outline of the golf club in a shadow hitting a guy. So you don't even really get to see the thing that you're promised.
So is there any at least stylized violence? At least Boondock Saints had some of that. Is there any?
This has a lot of like pretentious artistic stuff in it. Not necessarily the violence. The violence is rather ham-fisted and just kind of action movie. But they have a lot of setups with the art, especially in his art gallery, that are like, that a production designer spent days trying to cobble this together for a scene that lasts 30 seconds. And so they're going to stand in this very arty background and have an important conversation. Oh, it's so bad. There's so many bad things about this movie. Characters you can't tell apart. Characters who... there's a female character who is apparently like, I don't know if she's well known on TikTok or YouTube or whatever, but she's in this movie and she's not prominent at all. She plays, I think she's Emil Hirsch's girlfriend, but honestly, it's hard to tell. She barely has enough screen time to establish who she is. She at one point just hands him a drink and she's dressed in a bathing suit. So you assume maybe that they must have some sort of romantic connection, I guess. They're very intimate in that moment. But that's the only time they seem to be intimate. And then she gets the biggest death in the movie. You see her head just exploded all over a window. Why does she get this death? Why is hers the most important death in the movie? She gets the most spectacular, explosive death. She's not a character in the movie.
She's either loved or hated on TikTok, probably.
If there's an inside joke, I don't know what it is, and I didn't find it funny.
Or even if it's not an inside joke, just, this audience might come watch the movie, so let's just...
Hey, guys, I'm on YouTube. Come see me get my head blown off.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad I didn't watch this one.
Yeah, you're just count yourself lucky. Don't bother with this piece of garbage. Most people didn't. I don't think it made any money.
Good. And I thought Jeremy Piven was canceled, so I'm surprised to see him in anything.
Maybe that's why he's in this movie.
Either that or he's just a natural douchebag, and that's what. And I just assumed he's canceled. I don't know.
What's weird is that Jonathan Rhys-Davies actually put out a better movie the same weekend. It's called The Survivalist. It's him and John Malkovich. And it's just a straight-ahead COVID-19 era action movie about a guy defending his farm from people who are trying to take it away. And that movie's kind of effective in its violence and kind of exciting in a kind of old-school action movie way. John Malkovich is a guy who thinks he's survived COVID. In this movie, COVID has grown to such a degree that it's killing everyone who gets it. And he somehow survives it, so he thinks he's a prophet. And there's this girl who is immune to COVID, played by Ruby Modine. And she's on the run from him because he thinks if he can get a hold of her, they can restart humanity with people who are immune to COVID. So she's on the run from him. She goes to Jonathan Rhys-Meyers' farm and stays there, and he protects her. And there's a showdown between Myers and Malkovich and Malkovich's minions.
I know the name Jonathan Rhys-Meyers. What is he from? Does he have like a big movie
is he in Queen of the Damned? Was that him? He was supposed to be really big at one point. Like he had a big movie with John Travolta that went nowhere. I'm not sure if he was big on TV. He might have been on The Tudors. Is that the show?
I know nothing about him. Then I see the name pop up here and there. He may as well be Ben Mendelsohn. Josh might listen since he was on last week. I don't know. Let's talk about Old Henry. I did read your review of this, and you seem to like it. Right? Or am I wrong?
It's Old Henry. No, this is a good movie. Old Henry stars Tim Blake Nelson as Old Henry. He's a farmer in the Old West who stumbles across, he sees this horse just riding alone. Obviously, it had a rider on it, so he goes to look to find the rider, and he does. And it's this character played by Scott Hayes who has been shot. He thinks he might be dead, and he's got a big satchel of money. So the right thing for Henry to do would be to ride away and just leave this guy to die and just leave the situation alone. But he doesn't. He picks him up, he rescues him, and he takes the money as well. The money is being pursued by a character played by Stephen Dorff, who claims to be a lawman, but then Scott Hayes' character also claims to be a lawman, and Henry's trying to divine between the two of them. But what neither of them realize is that Henry is actually a super badass. He's a former gunman in the army. He's just a total badass who just has no time for any of this shit, and he's just ready to just turning him loose to kill everybody. Is just the worst idea that anybody has. Something that Scott Hayes' character kind of comes to realize right away, but Stephen Dorff doesn't, and that it sets up a really fun conflict. And it's fun to watch just Tim Blake Nelson be a badass in the Old West. Like, he doesn't look like a badass, but they do such a great job of building him up, kind of giving him this legendary feel that you really buy in. And then there's a big twist in this movie that a lot of people have found kind of divisive. I didn't mind it so much, but I know there's a lot of people who did kind of get put off by that, but I didn't mind it. I really like this movie, especially I always say I'm not a big fan of Westerns, but then I end up liking hardcore Westerns, and this is kind of a hardcore Western.
Yeah, for the most part, I can't think of a Western you haven't liked that we've talked about on the show. If I'm being honest. We haven't gone to too many old John Wayne ones, usually when we talk them, they're classics, so I suppose that's a reason for it, but yeah.
I wrote an article about why it's related to my dad and his liking Westerns and my defining my identity to be not my dad.
It's fair enough.
So it's a whole lot of psychological stuff to my saying I don't like Westerns.
Yeah. You also attended the Nashville Film Festival. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, and in fact, I'm still kind of attending it as well because there's still a couple days left. But
right.
I had a chance to see several films at the Nashville Film Festival that is ongoing through October 6th. And there's some good stuff there. There's some stuff that's kind of weird and kind of off-putting. One movie that I can't even begin to describe. It's right there with American Night. It's one of the worst things I've ever seen. Not ever seen, just this year. But it's about the female orgasm. But it's like people who are trying to find the perfect female orgasm. And they have this new person who's coming to work for their collective who also is, I guess, looking for the perfect female orgasm. But then everybody's played as if they're kind of a terrible person that you wouldn't want to be around. But they're also doing something that you'd think would be a noble purpose. Because, I want women to have orgasms. I just don't want these people to be anywhere near good things. I hated them all. So it kind of made it weird.
Was it directed by a white male?
I don't know who directed it. I can't even remember the name of it off the top of my head. Something Success. But I hated that movie just a lot. And I don't think I even made it all the way through because it was just so irritating. It was so... it wanted to be like a porno version of Best in Show, I think, but with no nudity. So it's like a lot of sexual talk, like a lot of open sexuality among a group of oddballs who are kind of like Best in Show characters, but none of them are likable or interesting.
Sounds remarkable.
Yeah, I hated it. But what I did like, though, is a brand new documentary on the band Aha. Are you familiar with Aha?
Of course.
Take
Love
on Me,
Aha.
right?
Yeah.
You love Aha. Okay,
I
this
love
is actually
some of it. I want to see the movie. I didn't know
this is a really great movie. It's called Aha the Movie, and it's taking you through the entire career and the strange dynamic between these three guys who a lot of people assume were one-hit wonders. And I guess in America, they kind of were.
Right.
But worldwide, they're one of the biggest bands in the world. They've literally played in front of the two largest audiences in world history that attended Aha concerts. Which is quite a fun thing to know. I really had no idea how huge that they were and are. Now they're still huge worldwide. And this documentary is fascinating. The weird dynamic between the three of them, they don't seem like friends. They seem like coworkers. But they work well together. They kind of like each other enough to work together, but not a lot to be nice to each other. Which is a weird, fascinating dynamic. Most bands don't survive that when you have these kind of clashes, and sometimes they didn't. They broke up a couple times, but they always come back together. And it's not super emotional. It's just, well, let's do another thing, I guess, and then we'll make a bunch of money and go back to our very rich lives. And I found that dynamic fascinating, and this documentary captures it wonderfully. On top of the wonderful use of the animation style that's in Take On Me, they use that to kind of illustrate their past occasionally. It's there, not overwhelmingly. It's not the entirety of the movie, but it's there a lot of the time, and it takes you through each of their records, and their records are really good. And if anybody had given them a chance in America, maybe they could have been big here too. It's strange that like this very like America-centric attitude that we all have, that I have too, that I think we're everything we do here is the biggest thing, and if it's not big here, it can't be big anywhere else. This documentary is a wonderful corrective for that. That's
cool. It's an amazing, even bands that are based out of America that are huge overseas, like they live here, but then they won't tour here at all because there's no money in it. But they'll hit up Japan.
It was like Slaughter. It was like huge in Japan.
Mr. Big is like Big, Metallica big over elsewhere, but over here they can't play. The band Europe is an arena band. Here they could maybe play a bar,
right? Exactly.
And you have to play a final
weird,
countdown
right?
4 times in that same show. It's insane. But it's very cool. I definitely look forward to seeing that because I'm very interested in stuff like that. But I think you'd be surprised about how most bands that do last long find a way to transition from friends to coworkers. that's how they manage to make it.
Yeah.
So that sounds really neat. I'm looking forward to seeing that. It is, but at the same time, if you had to live with somebody day in and day out, you need to get away from them. I get
that
it.
That was your vows with your wife, right?
Yes. Uh-huh. But yeah, I mean, even of all the years of, because I used to interview a lot of rock stars, and I've been on their tour buses and stuff, and it is very much, I get it. They were, I was in college, and you are in your dorm room. It's already tough with your roommate. These are 4 to 5 guys plus whatever crew you have in bunks with a curtain. You don't have a door to close. Yeah. So, and it's like that for probably the first 10 years of your career. I understand how it turns into a business relationship versus friends. Anyway, what else did you saw? Something else called Charm Circle?
Charm Circle, yes. This is a weird and fascinating documentary about a Jewish family in New York that's kind of fractured. The director is a member of this family. She's making this movie about her family. And this movie is really strangely engrossing, but also kind of terrifying. Just these two characters who are functioning kind of, but they're also just kind of very odd to a very odd degree. And you kind of wonder just what happens to people like this in our society who don't seem to have any kind of skill. Like they seem to be hanging on to that bottom rung so hard. And like, if these people fall off the economic map, what happens to them? They end up homeless, or they end up, living with children who have to, try and carry them because there's just nothing that they can do anymore at a certain point. And that to me just was terrifying. That's not the point of the movie, but it terrified me watching it. Just thinking about that, it put it in my head. But it's also just the fractured relationship between these parents and their three daughters. So one of whom is who's moved so far away. She's moved from New York City all the way to Olympia, Washington, to get away from her parents, and she's getting married to two women in a threesome marriage. And the father is a traditional Jewish man who's kind of entirely resistant to the idea of his daughter getting into this relationship. So that's part of it, but it's also just about the strange history of this family and the very odd dynamic between husband and wife, who are kind of obviously more roommates than they are husband and wife anymore. And ones who don't really get along very well, but they're not getting apart from each other in any way. They kind of sweetly take care of each other, but then don't. It's so odd. And they feed into the worst sides of each other. And you get into the history of who they were and she had a master's degree. And then it seems like she might've had schizophrenia come in at some point. And it becomes very sad. And you're watching these people and it's just very sad, but then also kind of slightly heartwarming. It's weird, but I like it. I like it because it's very different. You don't see many documentaries that are this honest and this strange, and certainly you don't see this type of person, these type of people in documentaries, or anywhere really.
That sounds fascinating. That is our show. Next week it's back to our standard episode. We have No Time to Die. Is that the last Bond movie with Daniel Craig?
Yes.
That's like the 50th time we said that, though, right?
Something like that, yeah.
And Prisoners of the Ghostland, which we found out kind of late that was already out. Although we would have had to really scramble to get it in. That's possible. I would have missed it. So we're going to move that to next week. South of Heaven, love the title. And everybody's talking about Jamie, or what we have on the docket for next week. Maybe Lamb, depending on if it makes its way here.
I'm so in for that movie. Oh my God, the trailer's so good.
I know. And I need a movie like that. Unless Prisoners of the Ghostland are able to satisfy my need for something out there. And our classic is God Told Me To. So...
yeah, we're for October. We're just gonna get into some horror movies that hopefully neither of us have seen. I know neither of us have seen this one, right?
I have not seen this one. I have seen the one we're gonna do the following week. But
you've seen Saint Maud?
Yes, but I still want to talk about it. It's
okay. We didn't get a chance to see it when it came out because of the whole pandemic thing.
Yeah. But no, I don't even know what God Told Me To is. So I'm looking. I like the title.
I found it on an obscure list of horror movies that have been overlooked by time, and I'm kind of looking for those titles for the rest of this month. So feel free to make suggestions on our Facebook page. I know Cousin Jeff might have a few. He's seen so many. Yeah,
but no, I'm looking forward to any time. I love when we can go back and do horror. I'm glad we got to do a horror movie this week. It's always fun. But yeah, so before we hit on the flick chart, remember to go to patreon.com/criticspod to help support the podcast. If you want to get some of our merch, go to tpublic.com and search Critics Pod or Everyone's a Critic Movie Review Podcast, or go to ihatecritics.net and click on the TeePublic link. Otherwise, let's pull up some flick chart before we call it a night. Oh yeah, and if you want to listen to us on YouTube, all right. Click on the little bell to get notified when we go live, or follow us on our social media pages, as I do post our link as we're live. Nightmare Before Christmas, Popeye.
Huh. They're both weird and interesting. Nightmare Before Christmas.
Yeah, I was leaning that way too, and I don't know if it's just because it's newer or what, but that was just my initial reaction. I grew up on Popeye and I loved it as a kid. Clear and Present Danger, Road Trip.
It's Clear and Present Danger for me.
It's Road Trip for me. I do not like these movies.
How dare you, sir? I just love that. I get that in my head all the time.
Yeah, you won. So Clear and Present Danger wins the coin flip. Rain of
Not
Fire.
even sure if that's the right movie.
Rain of Fire, The Cell. It's Patriot Games, probably.
Probably. I hate both these movies. So, which one do I hate less? The Cell.
Yeah, I was leaning that way as well. World War Z, Scream 2.
Scream 3 is the real bad one.
Yeah.
World War Z is probably as good as a movie that messy could be. Brad Pitt's really good in that. Scream 2 is way shorter. I'll take that one.
Yeah, I'm having a hard time with this one. I really don't. I suppose, is it really shorter, or are you just guessing?
I'm guessing. World War Z is like almost 3 hours long, so.
That is true. Yeah, I'll go Scream 2. I don't care that much, really, but wow. Be Cool, Pearl Harbor. This is a great matchup.
Be Cool because of The Rock.
I was going to say Be Cool because of Steven Tyler. He's horrible in it, but that was a fucking disaster of a movie when came out. But not quite Pearl Harbor. Run, Lola, Run, Marley and Me.
It's Run, Lola, Run, but Marley and Me doesn't have any right to be as good as it is. It really... Owen Wilson sells the shit out of that movie.
Yeah, I agree completely. Scott Pilgrim versus the World, Never Say Never Again.
It's Scott Pilgrim by a lot.
By a lot. Blair Witch Project, 28 Weeks Later.
Blair Witch.
Yeah. The Silence of the Lambs, Scream 2.
Silence of the Lambs.
Yeah, not even close. The Haunted Mansion, The Cider House Rules.
Give me a fucking break here. Fishing with Gandhi. No, even Haunted Mansion is better than fucking Cider House Rules.
It had a lower bar, and I got to it. California Split, I don't know what that is.
Yeah, I think we need to watch that one sometime. I've heard good things.
The Last Boy Scout, Y Tu Mama Tambien.
Y Tu Mama Tambien. The Last Boy Scout is a guilty pleasure for sure.
Oh, for sure, but it's not.
No, it's not good. No. It's not a good movie. It's just,
but Y Tu Mama Tambien is fantastic. So
yeah, it's wonderful. But Last Boy Scout is so easy to watch, though.
Oh yeah, I mean, I love the scene of just running down for a touchdown and pulling a gun out and shooting your defender.
So stupid.
Perfect for that
so
age.
Good. Perfect.
Amistad, Lost in Translation.
Lost in Translation.
Yeah. The Crow, Match Point.
Match Point.
Absolutely.
I like The Crow.
Yeah.
Match Point.
Yeah, when we made the classic a few years ago, I don't hate it, but I don't get it either. But Match Point's phenomenal. Spotlight, Karate Kid Part 3.
Spotlight.
Yeah. Amadeus Cops with Buster Keaton.
I don't think either of us have seen Cops.
I certainly haven't.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ, I wanted something good. Amadeus, Meet the Robinsons.
Amadeus.
I want to have to think. And even this, maybe before it should have been tough, but then we watched Midnight Cowboy. The French Connection, Midnight Cowboy.
I hate them both. French Connection.
I thought you liked the French Connection.
No, I've watched it again, and it's not as good as I thought it was.
But Midnight Cowboy is kind of a mess. Hannah,
I hate Midnight Cowboy, but I hate Dustin Hoffman.
Yeah, Hannah, Dick Tracy.
Hannah, because Dustin Hoffman's in Dick Tracy. I'm kidding.
The Revenant, Get Smart.
Revenant.
Yeah. Mission Impossible, Ghost Protocol, Battleship. Something.
I've seen Battleship Potemkin, but I don't. It's been
been too long.
And just skip it.
All right. Mission Impossible, Ghost Protocol, Freddy's Revenge.
It's Ghost Protocol. I still love Freddy's Revenge, though.
I don't really like either one, so I'll just go with you. Paul Blart, Mall Cop, iRobot.
iRobot. Fuck, pull alert.
That's fine. 10 Cloverfield Lane, 22 Jump Street.
That is tough. That's a funny movie. Jonah Hill and Channing Tatum are funny together.
Yeah, for me, I think if it was 21, I'd go 21 Jump Street. I did like Cloverfield Lane a lot, so I'll lean that way. You can go wherever you want.
All right, I'll go with Cloverfield just to go with you.
I do like 22 Jump Street, don't get me wrong. And if, like I said, if it was the original, I would have definitely probably gone with that. The Magnificent Seven, XXX, State of the Union.
I mean, it's Magnificent Seven over a very low bar.
There's No Business Like Show Business, White Chicks.
Never seen it.
Which
Never
one?
seen There's No Business Like Show. I've seen White Chicks.
The Pelican Brief or White Chicks.
Pelican Brief.
Yeah. The Twilight Saga, New Moon, Birdman.
Birdman.
Not even going to wait for you. Mamma Mia, The A-Team.
Oh, they're both garbage. Light them both on fire.
All right. I'll do that. Night Crossing, Cars.
I don't know Night Crossing.
Neither do I. Raising Arizona, Cars.
Raising Arizona.
It's a very easy one. House of Flying Daggers, Lions for Lambs.
Lions for Lambs is one of the most disappointing films I've ever seen. Like, that should have been brilliant. I mean, we got Meryl Streep, Robert Redford, Tom Cruise in a story that was of the moment about terrorism and policy, and it's got a really smart idea to it, and then it just completely lays there dead for 90 minutes.
It's awful.
House of Flying Daggers.
I mean, Robert Redford's one, too. The more I go back and look at stuff, I don't necessarily love it.
Yeah.
Either. I mean, you got All the President's Men, I'll give you that. But, I mean, Sting isn't as good as I thought it would be. Butch Cassidy's not as good as I thought it would be.
The Candidate?
The Candidate. What I do like is Paul Newman in those movies. But, he's really The Natural. I think is one of the worst movies ever. I really hated that. Anyway, The Karate Kid Part 3, Amistad.
Amistad.
I do have a soft spot for Karate Kid Part 3. I watched that a lot as a kid. A League of Their Own, Liar Liar.
I like both those movies, but it's A League of Their Own for me.
Yeah, I'm with you. The Sheriff of Fractured Jaw.
No idea what that is.
Terrible title. Crime Busters.
Also don't know. I don't know that one either.
The Little Mermaid, Fast and the Furious.
Fast and the Furious. This is Fast and Furious. This is like the fifth one.
God damn it, I can't even win that one. Poseidon, 8 heads in a duffel bag.
Oh, for fuck's sake. Set them both on fire, please.
Yeah.
Well, you got a thing for 8 heads?
No, I was just dozing off. My apologies. The Adventures of Tintin, Species 2.
Tintin.
Yeah, Species 1. Not really. Cocoon, Secret Window.
Secret Window. Love that movie.
Yes, Die Hard 2, The Abyss.
You pick. I mean, I don't have any strong feelings about The Abyss, and I don't like Die Hard 2.
Yeah, we had like the opposite reaction to Die Hard 2. I hated it forever until it turned 30, and I was like, this isn't as bad as I thought. And you were like, this is way worse than I thought.
So true.
But neither one of us liked The Abyss, so
yeah, there you go. That's fair.
It, but Winter's Bone, Syriana.
Winter's Bone.
Yeah.
Syriana was good. It could have been better.
Right.
Needed a tighter edit.
Close Encounters of the Third Kind, World War Z.
Close Encounters.
Yeah. Superman, Analyze This.
Analyze This. Begrudgingly, because I've come to really hate Spider-Man or Superman.
I like Analyze This, though. The Conversation or While You Were Sleeping.
the conversation.
Ready Player One, Transformers.
Ready Player One, even though it's not a good movie.
Alone in the Dark, Taken.
Taken.
Fine. I don't know what Alone in the Dark is.
I imagine if you watch Taken now, it probably sucks.
Rocky 3, Dickie Roberts, former child.
It's like
star.
one of the. That's like a movie. Sorry, I got to go back to Taken for just a second. It's like a movie that just lives for that cultural moment and then goes away. Kind of like the way Austin Powers cultural moment that doesn't last. I think the Austin Powers movies are fine now, but like in the moment, they were the biggest thing ever. Taken in the moment is the biggest thing, and then you look back on it now, and you go, what did we really see in that?
I just saw a guy could beat up. Like I didn't buy a special set of skills at all. All right, last one. Rocky 3 or Dickie Roberts, former child star.
Rocky 3.
Yeah. Unless something amazing pops up, we're done. Nope. We're done.